Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. We are on location at the famous New Yorker hotel where Tesla used to live and actually passed here in this beautiful hotel. But we're here today because of the New York NewLife Expo run by Mark Becker. And I've had the great pleasure of meeting Bill Downs, who is the president and CEO of Victory Nutrition International. He is the founder of it. He is himself a nutritional formulator, and he's been at this for some 35 years, working with companies across the United States, helping to formulate products of the very highest quality and the highest order. Well, at a certain point he decided to do it on his own, and that's what this company is, so this way he can make sure of the integrity of the quality of all of the ingredients, the combination of the ingredients, the proportions of the ingredients, and delivering the best kind of health and potential for that to his customers. So it's a pleasure, Bill, to have you on.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. It's great to be here.
Now, I've had the chance to sup of your wonderful Protovite products and the others, and I tell you, I'm not one who experiences, people go, oh my God, I see God.
Right.
I'm not one of those. I see God all the time. But honestly, as basically an athlete, someone who's very active, I felt the products and I felt some change in my performance on the tennis and the paddle tennis court. And that's why I wanted to sit you down here today, Bill, and to discuss what it is you're doing, because it's something different.
Yes,
How would you describe what's different about what you're doing?
Well, from a result standpoint, we have a technology, a delivery technology called a proteasome technology that's been shown in a clinical study to deliver nutrients into the blood within 5 minutes of ingestion, 100% of the time in 100% of the people. And
that's an awesome statement.
It's pretty amazing.
You say it so quickly, but I'm still
Yeah,
like, what?
Well, the real amazing aspect of that is when you get the nutrition, the orchestra of nutrition going into the body, it can play the symphony of biology because it's all getting in at the same time. It's synchronized absorption. And it restores the ability for cells to use oxygen and water to make energy, manage energy, and eliminate waste. At cellular level, cellular metabolism, and that's metabolism, the general definition of metabolism. Mm-hmm. So how it does that is an amazing story, a journey of investigation. One of the things I wanted to do was try and figure out how the body works. Most dietary supplements, you take a bunch of ingredients, put formulas together,
stir them together,
put them together, you put them in a tablet, a capsule, a powder, a liquid. You put it in the body and hope the body knows what to do with it and does what it's supposed to do with it, what your expectation is. Interesting.
Well, a lot of it also has to do with absorption and the body's ability to absorb whatever those even wonderful nutrients may be.
Right. And the number one health malady in our culture is digestive problems. It's the number one reason for emergency room visits after accidents. It's the number one reason for doctor visits. It's the number one reason for the most purchased over-the-counter medications. And it's the number one reason for the most prescribed medications outside of some of the recreational products like Cialis and Viagra. So it is a major problem. Digestive maladies underpin every major chronic degenerative disease. So we are relying on a system that's designed to turn not you into you, mm-hmm. and it's not doing it very well, to get nutrients, however valuable they are, as you just said, into the tissues and convert them to you. It's a broken system. We're eating food that's coming from nutrient-depleted soils. We have pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, bactericides, growth enhancers, GMO products. They're sprayed to change
Every
the color.
single type of
Radiation.
pesticide and toxicity that you can't even imagine.
And even the organic foods are oftentimes picked green to get them to market so they're ripe. So
Very true.
yeah, we're
And
just
not only that, if you think about what constitutes organic soil, we're in another ball of trouble anyway
Yeah,
because
right.
it's surrounded by toxic soil. So
Right.
seeing as there's
Pesticide
actually
drift.
one system, right?
Right.
And the USDA, I remember, said, well, I wasn't there for them to say it, but in 1933, that the soil in the United States was already mineral depleted
Right,
back
correct.
then, and it hasn't been replenished by Monsanto.
So my objective was to create a product with my colleague Steve Kushner, who was really the brain behind the original prototype, which was called Intellisomes way back when. Create
I like
a technology that did not rely on the competence of the digestive system to get into the blood. So in order to do that, we had to mimic the dynamic and properties of the blood. We had to mimic cell membrane properties, and we had to mimic biological fluid properties rather
Biomimicry.
than
basically at
I
its
like
best.
that. Yeah, I think we'll coin that.
Oh no, it's been coined.
Oh, has it?
I thought you knew that. Yeah.
No, I didn't know.
Oh
that.
yeah, it's a
Biomimicry.
huge movement across the planet actually about doing this kind of thing. Architecture based on nature and
Exactly.
corporations constructed based on nature, management teams.
and
Very interesting.
and a biodynamic environment in which it self-assembles. It's interesting when you try and mimic the biodynamics of, for example, blood flow, it changes how things go together. When you put the ingredients together, they kind of know how to assemble themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So phospholipids, which you get from plant sources, in lecithin,
Fats from plants.
right? Phospholipids, they have a water-loving end and a water-repelling or fat-loving end called a phospholipid. In this case, phosphatidylcholine. And phospholipid is electrically neutral, has a head and a couple legs. And the way they fit together is the two legs intersect, and that creates the phospholipid bilayer, which makes up the cell membrane of all the cells, soft tissue cells in your body, and the membrane of all the intracellular organelles, the nucleus, the ribosomes, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. So
Don't quiz me on that.
no, there'll be a test later. So what we do is we create structured water running at about 20,000 RPMs. So the
Basically, vortex water that has taken on a coherent alignment of the molecules.
Absolutely. We go from creating a chaotic forest of water molecules to a neatly aligned army of water
I'm
molecules.
very familiar with it.
Right. And we take these phospholipids and we impregnate and saturate them with free ions. So again, a phospholipid is electrically neutral. We change that and we give it a negative ionic charge. And then we introduce those energetically enhanced, we call that effiquence, energy frequency enhancing. We introduce those into this dynamic vortex, and then we mechanically pre-digest all the ingredients in the protovite, running them down to microscopically small sizes. We create actually an emulsion. And introduce.
I don't want to ask how you pre-digest them.
Well, it's basically
could be
wet
funny.
milling. It's an advanced wet milling. It's called a high shear tri-blender jet compression particle processing. There'll be a test on that later too. So when you get
I'm learning a lot.
when you get these particles into this microscopically small particle sizes and uniformity, then you introduce that into this dynamic vortex, and these phospholipids have an adhesive property. And we use a very high grade phospholipid source. It's a non-GMO soy, and it's about 88 to 92% phosphatidylcholine. Most lecithin's about 19 to 21% phosphatidylcholine. And anybody who's ever spilled lecithin granules on a countertop and tried to wipe it off knows it has
It becomes yellow.
it's like an adhesive property. It's kind of like formic adhesive. Imagine what it's like at 88 to 92%. And it begins to cluster around these micronutrients and phytonutrients in this dynamic vortex, self-assembling, and we get liposomes. But for the scientists out there, the Zweiterian value is significantly higher. It's much more
It's
stable.
what?
The Zweiterian value.
Whiterian. How about for the rest of us?
It's the dynamic property of adhesive stability. I'll use that as a basic,
Okay.
and it's an energetic property as well.
In short, what I think what you've got is not only a biochemically sophisticated molecule, but one that's got a valence to it, a negative charge, so
Right.
that wherever it goes, it's energizing, electrifying.
Absolutely.
Not just nourishing biochemically, but electrifying.
It's
Physically.
it's life energy.
It's life energy.
It
It
is.
sounds like chi to me.
It's well, and it rhymes. Chi to me. Anyway, it's like standing out in a spring rain, and
The
after
negative ions.
Oh, the negative ions. are
Showering
occurring, right.
ones.
Well, that's what keeps your blood free
Moving.
and flowing and moving. So what happens is when we do this dynamic vortexing, as I said, we get liposomes within a liposome and clusters of those liposomes within a liposome, up to hundreds of concentric layers. And when a production batch is allowed to stand at room temperature for several hours, no heat is used in making the product. It has what's called an
That's unusual in itself.
well, because it contains phospholipids, to retain the integrity of the phospholipids, if you put butter at a high temperature, it melts. And by the way, I'm originally a redneck from Georgia, so there's no ER on the end of that, it's an A, it's butter. If you put butter, but it melts. So to retain the integrity.
Marlon Brando in that film. Oh,
Right.
forget it.
So we don't use heat, but when you allow a production batch to stand at room temperature for several hours, it has an exothermic reaction. It heats up to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit and stops. And we did it numerous times because the production chemist who has been doing liquid supplements all of his adult chemical engineering life was blown away. He said he had never seen anything like this, and they've done thousands of supplements. So we did it over and over and over again.
This sounds like the birth of Frankenstein.
It's alive. and this reaction is now part of our patent application because it's so unusual.
So unusual.
And
what is the therapeutic? Is there a therapeutic effect of that?
It's biologic, body friendly. It gets in. Your body essentially recognizes it as really body friendly, almost as you. Biomimicry. And so it does not...
And bioavailable.
Bioavailable, biousable. So bioutility. So it doesn't break down in the stomach, but when you put it in your mouth, it begins to degrade and absorb through the sublingual mucosa, the blood vessels under the tongue and in the salivary
Cheeks.
glands. Yeah, cheeks. It really absorbs and has a dramatic impact on the blood in 5 minutes or less. Then it goes into the stomach. It does not degrade. And it goes into the small intestine, and because the phospholipids have an adhesive property, they adhere to the GI mucosal border, the intestinal wall.
So it bypasses the hydrochloric acid in the stomach?
It doesn't break down.
It doesn't break down. It's like enclosed, it's encapsulated in
Yes,
some
yes.
biochemically.
It retains the
Biophysically.
integrity of the structure.
Bioelectrically, yeah.
Right. And goes
Well,
into...
that's huge.
It's
course,
big.
because-
Certainly it's big. And it goes into the small intestine, adheres to the intestinal wall, and degrades in the alkaline pH, and the phospholipids and the nutrients and the phytonutrients that are mechanically predigested, passive diffusion into the blood. Now, if you put whole food into the blood, you have a catastrophic immune response. That's why they're mechanically predigested. There is no antigenic response in the blood. It is body friendly. And we've had enormous reports of benefits in addition to our clinical study.
Let's get into those, actually. Not the clinical study, the reports. I think I just got a clinical study.
Yeah,
No, it's fascinating.
Aside from the
Really
fact that we're not diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease, we're simply giving the body the nourishment that it needs to fulfill its genetic programs, to do what it's designed to do. Because we haven't seen anything do what this does, ever. There are a lot of great products.
Well,
in
it's
the industry.
interesting. Of
Yeah.
course, there's great products, and you've been doing this for some 35 years, and you've been
Right.
around the block to see what's available and what's not, and what is having what kind of effect on human health and what's not. What have you seen here that is most outstanding? I mean, you've named, I know we're not diagnosing or anything like that, and we just let the doctors do that. And
Right.
We'll do the healing. But, but people with MS, people with Parkinson's, people with other neurodegenerative diseases, people with migraines. This is serious as well.
Right.
Go on, give us,
listen.
the big C, the little c, you name it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
All chronic diseases have something in common. They are rooted in an inability to effectively use oxygen and water. And what the Protovite does is restore the ability to use oxygen and water. So, if
the primary nutrients, actually.
Yeah.
Water and oxygen.
That's, you're made of air, water, sunshine, and food.
Yeah.
So, and the function of food is to provide the structural components to give the functional capability to maintain the ideal environment in which to use oxygen and water. And if you can't use oxygen, you can't use water, because water is H2O. So,
it's an amazing design if you think about it.
It is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
So when you have something like cancer, like what does cancer mean? What's the name mean? Doesn't mean anything.
It's kind of a crab.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Which is when I was born, by the way. So I decided to give all these chronic degenerative conditions a more descriptive name, and I call them suffocating cell syndrome. They can't use oxygen, they can't use water. Suffocating cell syndrome. So if I put a pillow over your face and press down really hard, I'll bet my house that your behavior will change pretty dramatically in a short period of time.
That's an easy bet.
So do your cells.
Yeah.
When they can't use oxygen, they get frantic. And if they can't use oxygen, they have to change to mechanically breaking down sugar. It is 19 times less efficient and causes a frantic upregulation, a defense, survival-induced response called glycolysis to produce ATP.
Break down sugar.
To break down sugar, produce ATP. And you only get 2 ATP or energy molecules from one glucose, one sugar molecule, whereas when you can use oxygen, you get 38. And it takes 2 seconds to make the 38. It takes 7 minutes to make the 2. It's a metabolic, horrendous, sludging
I'll take the former,
burden.
please.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'll take 2 seconds any day. So,
wow,
all of
that's
these
a
chronic
profound
disorders,
difference. Yeah,
and it doesn't matter.
They have all of that in common.
It's all in common. So we want to restore the ability to use oxygen and water. And we've seen it, if you can't use oxygen to burn sugar, what kind of a burden do you think that puts on your pancreas to make insulin to meet the higher sugar intake? Because your body's desperate. You start craving more sugar.
It becomes hormonally taxing
Exactly.
on the body. And we should also give proper deference to Dr. Otto Warburg, who in 1933 discovered and was given the Nobel Prize of Medicine for noting that cancer only lives in oxygen deficient, deprived environments.
Right. It's
and
acidic.
Therefore, exactly, provide the oxygen, and you have
He put an alkali. He put an alkali in the water, and I think it was in less than 15 minutes the cancer cells were killed. So again, we're not. And by the way,
so in a sense, he was a precursor to some of what you're doing.
Exactly. Well, that's the idea, is to restore the ability to use oxygen and water. It's not to put somebody on high oxygen therapy, which is a theoretically an effective navigational therapy, but you're made of air, water, food, and sunshine. So what we want to do is we want to restore the body's ability to breathe at a cellular level rather than give it a whole lot more oxygen that could change the oxygen saturation, but induce increased oxidative stress. We want to restore the ability to use the oxygen.
So now, let's talk about actual effects that you have seen over the years.
Stabilizing blood sugar levels in people that have very bad blood sugar levels with conditions that are characteristic of terrible blood sugar levels. We have one lady that was able to save a foot amputation. She didn't have to go through the foot amputation surgery.
Because what happened?
She took the Protovite. She took 2 ounces a day and put it on the wound.
Topically.
Topically. It's because the absorption technology is also transdermal, and had a dramatic remission. 3 weeks after 2 years of suffering and 14 months of intense therapy, being on, she had a PICC line, for antibiotic PICC line put in. She had 6 skin grafts.
That's enough to kill you.
And she's had a history. She had 3 heart bypass operations and 4 stents put in. They eventually did 60 hyperbaric oxygen treatments, so you super oxygenate. and they were going to take
Love
her foot.
those things.
It didn't work. So she took the Protovite in 3 weeks on double dose, 2 ounces a day, and topical, completely healed.
What have you seen it do for fungal conditions or yeast conditions?
They're anaerobes.
Candida.
They're anaerobes.
Yeah.
Anaerobes can't live in an aerobic environment.
We just discussed that.
Right.
So, but in the practical world, what have you seen with people who have taken the Protovite? Or any of your other products?
Initially people can feel really great. And
do you know of specific instances of people?
Yeah. We hear it all the time where these things are common. There's absolutely common. I don't know how else to say it. They're so, the miracles are commonplace. Only because the body's the miracle. We're just nourishing the body's ability to turn on its genetic potential and see amazing things happen. And it doesn't matter what it is. We're not curing diseases. The body is. And I really don't want to be making medical claims. Right. There is a
I'm
major...
not asking you to, but yeah. I am asking about people who have been diagnosed with one thing or another, and they are coming and they're taking. But you made a very, very important distinction that you're helping the body do its job, which is healing.
Exactly.
It's the body that heals.
Right.
And I'll tell you, in a place like the NewLife
performance.
Expo, even though I love everybody who comes here, they say, I'm a healer. Hi, how are you? I'm a healer. And I've been involved in healing all my professional life. But I don't like calling myself a healer. But I know that some work that we do in different ways, nutritionally, psychologically, emotionally.
Because people are blocked.
We're freeing up the potential for the body and the mind to do that kind of healing.
As the head goes, so goes the body.
But these are just important distinctions, and I really appreciate you making them. So when I ask you about Parkinson's as an example, or cancer for that matter, I understand the mechanics, but have you seen people come in your door and take and say,
yes,
thank you, Bill?
Yes. Many, many, many,
Can
many
you
times.
give
Well,
people love stories.
I know they do. So does the FDA and the FTC. But
these are anecdotal.
Yeah, let me say that.
That was funny.
I wrote a chapter in a textbook. By the way, I'm a nutritional biochemist. I have 95 papers published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. I've been researching a long time. I recently wrote a chapter in a book. The book is called Phytopharmaceuticals and Brain Health. You can get it on Amazon. I think it's like $129. It may be on sale for like 103 or 105. My chapter, it's 444 pages long. My chapter, they made chapter 1. And the chapter is called A Hidden Etiological Nemesis of Chronic Neurodegenerative Diseases. And the hidden etiological nemesis is herpes. So whether it's Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, MS, encephalitis, meningitis, Bell's palsy, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, these are all...
Lyme?
Lyme, well, and the Lyme is a spirochete, but the thing that activates herpes is a weak immune system. And what does the spirochete do to the immune system? It weakens it. And it activates it activates the herpes virus. And then because the healing community, the medical community is so fixated on the spirochete, they ignore the viral implications. And we need to deal with the herpes virus. And the way you deal with the herpes virus is you prevent its viral replication, you prevent its viral binding, and you can strip the lipid jacket. But initially, the most important things are prevent viral binding. And that the virus requires a mannose receptor. And that's what's in the Protovite. The aloe that we use is bialoe, which is available to consumers.
So is aloe, in a sense, the base ingredient?
No, it's just one of the really good ingredients. We have another one that's a pine cone extract called Prolic, and that has 14 patents and about 25 clinical studies on it. And it's the only product I know that's been shown to reverse MRSA.
How do you... That's extraordinary. How, if it is counteracting candida, yeast, fungus, mold, yet the Protovite is actually quite sweet?
Oh, well,
what is that sweetener and why?
Americans are spoiled. So if I didn't put in xylitol and glycerin and stevia...
Xylitol and stevia are very friendly.
There's no sugar.
In fact, they're actually therapeutic.
Right. There's no sugar in the product. It's very body friendly. Yeah. And there are very great benefits to xylitol, by the way. Actually, we have one of the booths here is selling xylitol everything. So, and we have a concentrate that's a little more tart. It's about one small bottle is equal to 1/3 of a 30-ounce bottle. So, but you really need to put the product in your mouth, hold it for at least 30 seconds minimum. The longer you hold it, the more it gets in, and allow it to absorb, and then swallow. And you'll start to see some amazing things. And some of the things
like
that happen.
a fine wine,
Exactly. Yeah.
but a bit more therapeutic.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The thing that happens oftentimes is people can get really tired. Like they may feel great for a day or two, and then they feel like they're dragging an anchor behind them because they turn on the immune system, and the time of day that the immune system works the hardest is when you sleep. So your body's saying, go to sleep.
Oh.
I need to fix you.
Right. It's that yin state. It's the vegetative delta state, theta and delta state
Right.
of regenerative
Yeah.
activity.
It is neat. And I'm just
Isn't that
blessed.
interesting? But is it also a detox effect?
Oh, of course. Making energy, managing energy, eliminating waste. You know, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse to try and purge out toxins before the cells have the ability to make energy and manage the energy so that they have the strength
to push out the
to
toxins.
push out and handle them in the entire
It's a very interesting
reaction
point.
process. Right.
That's a very interesting point. So you're helping to actually build them up, build up their strength,
Right.
so they can perform all of their functions, absorption and excretion.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that it's a great privilege to be here with you. You're an icon in the industry. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to spread the word about this incredible product and the fact that, you know, that you've experienced something wonderful.
Yes, I
but
have.
that you're really an icon in the industry and wouldn't get in, you wouldn't allow this to happen if there wasn't something valid about this. And we have a lot of clinical research on our products, and I just appreciate the opportunity to come and stand in your shadow and make an impact on people's lives.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you. And indeed, a better world only gets behind things that we feel full about, and really we feel things are really on target and have the high integrity that we need
Thank
to
you.
stand behind them. And
We won't let you down.
I see that. I thank you so much for the good work you're doing.
It's a privilege. Thank you.
Sure. Wow. That was a lot. I hope you're absorbing that. Your minds are open enough to absorb that, even before pre-protovite, you could say. Anyway, it's really a pleasure to have you join us. Make sure to get in touch with me at mjr@abetterworld.net, mjr@abetterworld.net, or call me at 212-420-0800 to find out more about the product, so you can take it and get it inside your own body, or in general what we're doing here at A Better World. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.